Hi everyone, I'm Colette from Brand by Me, and welcome to our third, actually, in our live series, How to Steer Your Brand Through turbulent times like the ones we're in. So we're going to focus on how to stay true to who you are and what you stand for, because as a brand strategy consultancy, that's really our role. We help organizations and individuals understand who they are and what they stand for, and then we help them look at what that means on an everyday basis. And I think now more than ever that's really important. So you'll see my little note in the chat. First things first, do drop me a comment, say hi, just so I know that you're watching. And obviously we're going to use the comment box throughout, so if you have any comments throughout, just drop them in and feel free, questions and comments, and feel free to share. So let's start by looking at what staying true really means right now. So, what I've observed, and I think this is true of any number of brands, is that when everything is sort of changing, it can be really hard. It can be easy to lose sight of who you are and what you stand for, as well as kind of your focus, because there's changing. You don't really know where you are or what's important. And people say stuff like, bring your whole self to work or be authentic. But in reality, it's really hard to know what that means or how we should actually do that. And actually, the expectation of that looks different for everyone. So, in the last week, and certainly the week before, I talked about the danger of being really reactive and sort of responding with knee-jerk reactions at this time, rather than thinking about and leading with purpose and personality. And that's one of the things that happens when maybe we're not staying true to who we are. So, for me, staying true, particularly at this time, means even if we're having to pivot and adapt what we're doing, or we're not doing our usual activities, it's being really clear and consistent with who we are, what we stand for, and how we do stuff, so that we set an expectation in the outside world of what that looks like. Does that make sense? So it's all about actually really understanding kind of what makes us us, but then making sure we're delivering that consistently. So, in terms of staying true, and I referenced a little bit of this in week one, but I think there are three key elements that I really want to dive into around brand today and really talk about, because there are three elements of your brand that will really help you stay true no matter what's going on around you. And they are, in no particular order, your purpose, your values, and your personality. And again, this is as relevant if you're a big corporate as it is if you're thinking about you as an individual. Purpose, values, and personality are the things that really drive who you are and what you stand for. And if you're clear and you can articulate those, but also you understand what they mean and how they manifest, it will really help you stay true. So let's start by talking about values, because actually what's heartening to me at this time is that I've seen a lot out there, particularly on social media and especially on LinkedIn, about the importance of values right now. And I was really pleased to see that, because it's just generally it's not something that's talked about. So I've been seeing a lot about the importance of values and living our values. And that's great, that while people will say that, it's not quite clear maybe how you understand values, and even the definition of them tends to differ. So I think there's a general understanding, and I think we'll all be clear that connections on, but I'll continue anyway. So I saw an article where somebody said, your values are really important, and they said one of my behavior and how you think and why that is such a strong value to you, it won't help you sort of steer and stay true to who you are in this time. The articulate a value, that's what I would say that you should think about is, okay, if that's my value, why is that so important? In fact, the words we use are, why is that a non-negotiable? Why is it a non-negotiable? And what does that mean in terms of my behavior? What does it mean I do and don't do? And particularly at this time, if that's my value, what should I be doing? What shouldn't I be doing? What do I need to steer away from? So it's well worth thinking about values, but spending some time to really crystallize and articulate them, not just saying vaguely, oh, my values are really important. The other thing I've seen when people are talking about values, they've kind of said, oh, my values are really important. And values are the most important thing, the most important element in kind of at this point in staying true. And I'm not sure I agree with that, because I think values are super important. They really define kind of what you stand for. They really help you sort of navigate who you engage with, and maybe how you who you connect with at work and even where you work. But actually, I think values in isolation are not enough to help you stay true in this time. And I talked about in week 1, I talked about the importance of purpose. And I think that purpose is one of the other things, along with values, that's really important to understand in terms of helping you stay true. So for purpose, just a reminder, it's about why you exist, what you're in the world to do. And having a sense of purpose when everything around you is changing is so important, because what it means is you're really clear why you exist and what you're in the world to do. And then, you can think about why that's relevant at this time and who might really need that at this point. And having that sense of it will just give you a grounding that will really help you sort of maintain true to who you are, even if you have to change what you're doing at the moment. So my advice at this point is, if you are, you'll see here thinking, okay, Colette, but purpose, what does that even mean? It's worth spending some time really delving into what your purpose is right now. It might sound counterintuitive. You might think, oh, God, there's so much going on, I just don't have time to look at it. But if you're actually, for many of us, what we have to do pivots, and I'm going to give you an example of a brand that I think is doing that really well at the moment, is sort of do, but still really maintaining true to their purpose and who they are. So again, that's the second element in terms of, how we use our brand to stay true. The first one is understanding and articulating our values really clearly so that we understand what they mean and what it causes us to do differently. The second one is having a clear sense of our purpose so we know why we're in the world and what we're here to do, and thinking about why that's relevant. And I talked about that again in episode 1, so you might want to just go back, not now, watch now, but and recap that, because we talked about that in terms of driving action and the importance of it. But the other element about my own personality, and we do, but from a brand point of view, whether we're talking about personal brands, organizational brands, your personality is how you do things in an ownable way. So, of course, we have many aspects of our personality, but in terms of how we do things differently at work or at a brand level, kind of the things that shape how we do things, there'll be 2 or 3 key attributes that really drive kind of who we are. So again, the way that we think about this, and it's a useful exercise to do, particularly at the moment where actually everything's shifting around us, is to think about how we show up on our best day. When we're nailing it, when we're doing stuff really brilliantly, how do we do it? And then it's worth finding a couple, 2 or 3 descriptive words that really articulate that. So our brand personality, and I'm just going to take a look, because I don't know if you can see this, I'll do this. On our wall there, can you see? You can see our logo there, and that's actually our brand, and it has our personality listed. So our personality at Brand by Me is straightforward, vibrant, with an infectious smile, and that's how we do what we do. So at the moment, in terms of producing this content, I think about our personality a lot in terms of how we're going to show up and how we can do things in our own way. So when it comes to being straightforward, for me at the moment, that's been the thing that's really driving our actions. So not using loads of jargon, really being clear about why we're doing things and how we're doing things and what we're doing at the moment. And that straightforwardness is really helping us kind of brand at this moment, to make sure we're still finding that energy. Yes, it's a tough time, but we're not kind of being sucked into the, oh, this is really tough, but really trying to maintain that energy and just sort of, bring people up a bit in whatever we do, and finding ways to do that, whether that's on our newsletter, or on this show, hopefully, or in our interactions, our everyday interactions, with clients and people we come across, remotely, and particularly in the online environment, demonstrating all online. So that for me, in terms of staying true, really being able to understand your values, really using your purpose to focus in. So at this point, I will say, if you've got questions, pop them in the chat box. But I said that I would come on to an example of a brand that is doing an activity I see from this brand. Is just really, really nailing this sort of staying true piece at the moment. Now, what's interesting about this is that Brewdog at the moment have shifted. I think the connection's gone, but I'm going to continue anyway. I'll just give a sec for the connection to come back and see if it is. I'm going to continue because this will be in the recording. But I said I'd speak about the example Brewdog. So Brewdog as a brand are a craft brewery, and they have started manufacturing hand sanitizer. So they're really shifting away maybe from their core purpose. But in doing this different activity, they're still very much living their brand through everything they do, and how they're able to use their brand to really stay true in this time. So, Brewdog, they say their mission is to make people as passionate about craft beer as they are. And in their manifesto, it says Brewdog was born with the aim of revolutionizing the beer industry, completely redefining beer drinking culture, and making a stand for independence, quality, and craft. And I think what we see here is, even if they're shifting, and as well as doing craft beer and making hand sanitizer, they've really thought about, and maybe it's not, I think the brand is so implicit in what they do. I don't think this is like something they've spent a really big strategic exercise doing, but they've thought about what it means to be independent. They've thought about their craft and quality and how they can apply that at this time. And they've thought about bringing that passion to the fore through everything they do. So whether they're doing beer or hand sanitizer, their brand is completely consistent. And the reason I looked at it, I thought, well, it's quite exemplary at this time to really be thinking about and leading with brand in this turbulent time. So why are they doing that? And then I found this statement that I'm going to read from their brand that I think actually really explains why they have been able to stay so consistent. And so this is what it says in their manifesto. It says, our brand is not just our identity. It encompasses our entire purpose. People don't care either about our beer or our PR activity. They buy in to our entire entity. Our status as an employer, the values we stand by, our collaboration with other breweries, who we are and why we're here. We believe the brand is shaped by our customers, our equity punks, and our employees. Equity punks are their shareholders. Their perception of us is what shapes our brand, which is why anything other than sticking by our mission and values is brand suicide. And I want to leave us with that point. Anything other than sticking by mission and values is brand suicide at this point. Because understanding that at this point, it's really important to stay true to who we are, to live by our purpose, values, and personality is the key to staying true in this time. And actually, if we make sure that we have them on the wall, on our website, it will really help us just make sure they're at the forefront. So at this point, I know that the connection dropped in and out. So if there are any comments or questions, then please let me know. That's going to be where I'll leave it for today. I'm just going to wrap up with the 3 key takeaways that we discussed. So the first one is to make sure that you understand that in terms of staying true to who we are, it's about really understanding our purpose, why we exist, our personality, how we show up, and our values, what we stand for. And it's the combination of those three coming together that is really going to drive and help us stay true. The second thing is making sure we use those to think about and drive our everyday actions. So we're constantly coming back to them and thinking about why they're relevant. If we're feeling uncomfortable, we might think actually something's not right with our values. And then finally, it's remembering that and as Brewboard said, that in its totality is our brand. And that's the really important bit, is to understand that it's who we are and what we stand for that makes our brand. And if we drift away from this at our time, it's going to really impact us. So I can see that Lucas has got a question in terms of, I mentioned at the beginning, there's a lot said around staying true in terms of who we are, and how much of us who we are and what we stand for, and how we, bringing your whole self to work. So how much of ourselves should we bring to work? Well, when I think about it, I think about, rather than bring your whole self to work, I think about bring maybe your best self to work. So the parts of you that really demonstrate and evidence who you are, the part of you that are great at what you do. Of course, in this time, because we're often operating in our home environments, we might have to, but I think the important thing is to think about, your strengths. So having that understanding of personality. So, for me, I make sure that, whatever I'm doing, I always lead with that straightforwardness. I always try and bring energy into everything I'm doing. That's what it means. Okay, to be vulnerable. Yes, it is. Is it okay to massively rant and rail at everybody who's not doing what you want them to do? No, that's not okay. That's too much. So actually understanding kind of who you are and maybe how your personality helps you stand out is going to be key to working out how much of yourself to bring. And I wouldn't worry at this point. People are really showing a lot more of themselves. I think it's okay to do that. What I would say is just, do and share as much of is comfortable for you, and don't feel under pressure to bring every aspect of who you are into your work. Hope that makes sense. So at this point, if there are no other comments, I'm going to wrap it up today and say, hope this has been useful. Sorry about the tech issues. I will watch it back. And if I might do another recording of it, if it's particularly glitchy, please do subscribe to this and us being, staying true to who we are at this time. And feel free to follow us as well on our other social media, because we'll build on this topic throughout the week. So that's it from me. Have a great weekend, and thank you so much for tuning in. Bye.